Hi, it's Dawn from Dawn's Dirt. Dirt can mean gardening, dirt can mean farming, dirt can mean animals, dirt can mean politics, dirt can mean religion, dirt can mean anything I want it to mean because it's my podcast, my show. And so I'm really excited about today's episode. I have a young man who I have the utmost respect for, young Cole. I call you young Cole, sorry, behind your back. Young Cole actually is a former employee of mine, hardworking man. He worked in my store and he's been a farmer himself here in Canada and just graduated just within the last few years. And he's such a nice, wholesome, good-hearted, great young man and is an example of, what a young farmer and young entrepreneur and young man should be. And so, yeah, thank you so much for being on the show today, Cole, and really excited to have you. Can you tell us just the Cole's Notes Cole's Notes? Oh, look at that. Is that a pun? I think that's a pun. The Cole's Notes version, a little bit about who you are the Cole's Notes. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, Don, for having me on the podcast. I am from Alberta. I was raised on a mixed farm. We have grain and cattle, chickens, horses, a little bit of everything. We were raised with growing a garden, growing our own food for everyone, growing enough to try to get through winter. And I have been to Olds College for agriculture degree for schooling, and now I'm in Finland learning regenerative farming practices.
I love that. I love that. And so, yeah, what inspired you to sign up for a work exchange program in Finland? Like, how'd you get there, and what kind of farm are you on?
I didn't quite plan for Finland to be on uh, the top of my choice. It was more of I wanted to find a place that matched what I wanted to learn. And I went through a way to work, and they did a great job of matching what I wanted to learn and finding a place and a farm that could suit my learning goals. Um, on the farm that I'm on, we learn about regenerative farming and different cover cropping practices to better the health of the soil, reduce compaction, which is very crucial for bettering your crops from the farms.
Okay. So you're on a grain farm, or what kind of farm is it on that you're on right now?
Yeah, they just do grain. They have no livestock here. They do many different types of crops as well as many cover crops as well.
Okay. So how does that differ? So because you do a little grain here in Alberta, right?
We do, yes.
Okay. So, um, but now you're in Finland. So how can you tell me the difference between some of the crops that you're doing like in Alberta as compared to what you're doing in Finland right now? And maybe a little of the climate and things like that. Just tell me a little bit about the different crops and with regenerative, does that mean organic, or can you just explain that to me a little bit further?
So the crops that we are growing in Finland, a lot of them are winter crops because their season is a little bit shorter than the one near central Alberta. It's about the same, but they just have a different type of season overall. In the fall, at this time right now, it's very wet, damp, um, usually quite a bit of rain and a lot of fog. So it makes it really hard to get the crops off. So we want to try to get harvest done mm, beginning of September, starting in August. So that's why they grow a lot of winter crops. We grow winter oilseed, winter turnip rape, winter triticale, winter wheat, um, and then we do grow quite a few spring crops as well, like spring wheat, barley, oats. There is one guy that grows spring oilseed, but that is taking it quite risky because you're going to the end of the season. They don't often get snow at this time, but it's the rain that really gets them and the short days.
For sure. Okay. So I just want to jump back to the different crops. So oilseed, is that canola?
No, that is not canola. There's a difference between oilseed and canola, and there's a difference between rapeseed uh, and canola as well. Canola is the Canadian oilseed, originating from Canada.
Okay. And then what were some of the turnip? What was the turnip one?
There was winter turnip rape as well, which is definitely similar to canola, but it is a little bit different.
Okay, so these crops are meant for oil.
They are, yes.
Okay. And okay. Now I'm curious too. So this is something, and I'm winging it off my questions now because I'm gonna quiz you as we go here. Um, so we do. I would like to bring it back because you're a farm kid from Alberta. So, and I've actually not had a grain farmer on my show before. So you're my first grain farmer, and you know lots about this stuff. So, oh no, you're not the first grain farmer. I just misspoke, but it doesn't matter. You might be my favorite one because I really like you because you're such a good young man. Anyways, so the they don't use Roundup in Europe, do they? Like
They
we
do
use Roundup
actually.
in North
Oh,
America. Pardon?
they
Go
do
ahead.
actually.
Yeah, tell me what.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can you explain that then?
Yes, and I just remembered to get back to your question about regenerative versus organic. They are not organic. In the European Union, they can spray Roundup, but it has to be before there's a crop or after there's a crop. You cannot spray Roundup on the crop to kill it, like we do in Alberta. Um, if you do, you have to declare it, and it cannot go for human consumption. And if it goes for animal consumption, the farmer that they're buying it for animal consumption has to be okay with that, and they have to be aware.
Okay. So in Europe, they've got stricter laws on Roundup, on glyphosate.
They do. And they actually have a lot stricter rules on all pesticides in general. Um, when I was comparing our pesticides from Canada to the ones they have in Europe, especially in Finland as well, they are very regulated and they have a very few select chemicals that they're allowed to apply onto their crops, which makes it very difficult to regulate the pests within their crops.
Okay, so they've got very, very strict rules. Um, your like Canada compared to the European Union. So with regenerative, so they just spray less. And how does that differ?
Yes, I would say they do spray less. They do have a like the limited amount of chemical that they're allowed to apply, like the selection. So, for example, with the oil seeds, they there isn't really a spray to kill all the weeds in their crops that have they're available to them. So they have to just let the crop kind of go wild in a sense, and they do the best to make sure there's not very many weeds when they plant the oil seeds, and they just hope that there is no weeds when they go to harvest. Another one would be the beans as well. Uh, they're not able to spray the beans because there's not a very good effective chemical. So we make sure when before we seed the beans that is on a clean field with not very many weeds, and then we'll plant the beans and we don't touch the beans until we go to harvest.
Are you sitting on a farm or homestead that could be making you real money? Tired of guessing on how to market your products? I owned a 36,000 square foot greenhouse. I ran 2 farm to table stores. I had 30 people on payroll. I brought in $2.5 million in gross revenue in 2020, selling farm goods directly to customers. Now I teach farmers and homesteaders how to make money and save money off the land they already have. Whether you're selling eggs, beef, produce, baked goods, or anything in between, if you want to get into direct marketing and grow your sales, I'm the girl for you. Stop leaving money on the table and start putting it into your bank account. Join me at Dawn's Dirt Business Coaching and let's make your farm pay you back. Okay, interesting. And so part of regenerative, what that means is like if you're planting a bean crop, you're going to take your beans, like the little bean itself, not green beans, right? Little black beans or little beans, and you'll put those into the combine and the chaff from those bean plants will go back on the field and that gives you good nitrogen.
Yeah, the beans are like nitrogen fixing, so they will fix nitrogen from the air. The chaff is like will be add organic matter, just like any other crop, to the soil. And regenerative is more meaning you're renovating the soil, like you're trying to make the soil better. Sustainable is just to sustain the soil. So regenerative, it's a mindset shift. You have to think in ways you're going to try to better the soil in the long run. It's not a short-term goal. It's not a short-term plan. It takes many years to be able to increase the microbiome within the soil.
Okay, and back to this whole so beans, and I've heard this before, but can you explain it to me? I'm asking you to be a scientist now. So beans take carbon from the air and put it, no, nitrogen from the air and put it in the soil. How do they do that?
Yeah, legumes like peas, alfalfa, and beans, they will, I'm not sure exactly, but they'll take the nitrogen from the air, fix it onto the nodules on the roots, and then when the roots break down, it releases the nitrogen back into the soil for the crops after.
Okay, interesting. I knew that it did something like that, but I didn't realize it took it from the air and then put it into the soil through the roots. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was the plant, that the plant would just give the soil more nitrogen, but I guess it's the roots and the air. That's really interesting. Okay, so do they have big fields? Like we've got here in Canada, right? We've got like massive quarter sections and things like that. What do they have there? Is it the same type of farming? Like what equipment do you use and things like that?
It varies a lot here. You can have fields, I think our biggest one is 60 acres, uh, and we have fields all the way down to 2 acres. So we farm 400 hectares, so about 800 acres, and our biggest field is 60 acres. So we have a lot of fields, many different sizes. There are not very many that are a nice shape, like just perfect rectangle. Um, so you have a lot of turning within the fields. You don't have straight borders, which is something you have to get used to. The machinery here, it varies again. Like I've seen combines with no cabs from like how our great grandfathers used to farm to combines with tracks on the front. Um, and those two combines were only a kilometer apart.
Wow. Okay, cool. So it's more of a smaller scale, although hectares of land, that's a big farm. But yeah, so it's just more smaller scale, smaller fields. So why are the fields so small? Why is that? Why don't they have a quarter section of land? Like we've got sections in Saskatchewan. I think there's places you can go a full section without having a road or a border or a landline or anything like that. So why the small pieces?
In Finland, they have a lot of rocks and they have a lot of trees. So it takes a lot of work to be able to clear a field and make it into arable land. So they often did it alongside the rivers. You can see on maps where the rivers will be a little bit more bare and they'll have a lot of cropland, and it also is the best soil along the river. But in the last, I think it's the last 3 or 4 years, Finland is not allowing the farmers to clear any more land. So whatever farmland they have right now, that's the land they're going to have for the future to produce a crop. But there are so many trees and so many rocks that it takes a lot more work to make a bigger field than it does at home.
Okay. Do they have you seen any vegetable crops? Like here in North America and in Alberta and where we're from, there's not a lot of vegetable farmers. How about are there vegetable farmers there?
I have seen some cabbage farmers here. And then there's also some sugar beets. I don't know if you classify that as a vegetable for sugar. And it's more further down in the south just because of the longer season.
Okay, interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you left home. How long have you been there for? So you're here, you went on this exchange program. How long have you been over there for?
It'll just will be 5 months.
I didn't realize that. Wow, so you've been gone 5 months. And and how did you find the program? Like did you just Google like where can I go farming?
I have heard of the program. They came to speak at our college. And also we have friends that have been host families for this program. So I've been aware of this program. And I just looked it up online and seen what they had to offer. And decided to jump into it, when you fill out the application fee, you say what you're interested in, and they do a really great job at trying to match you with farms that match your interests. So it might not be your first top pick location, but I was placed on a farm that has everything I would like to learn about farming over here, and then I can bring this information and try to implement it to back to our farm in Canada.
Okay, so I really like that. So now you've been there and you're close to the end of your season there. What are the biggest takeaways? What are you going to take back to your farm here in central Alberta? How are you going to do your grain farming differently when you come back?
That's a good question. I have really thought about this, and I look at it, and with cattle, we can really use our cattle to our advantage here because they do a lot of cover cropping in Finland, and with the cover crops, you have to mow them down. And here they just mow it and put it back to the soil. Whereas back home, we can mow it and use it for hay, or we can put our cows on it to graze it. So when I come back home, I'd really like to implement extending our grazing periods, uh, either in the spring and the fall, and use that to not only extend the grazing periods, but better the soil for our cash crops that come after that.
Right. So for our listeners that don't know what it is, what's a cover crop?
So cover crop is what you want to try to cover the soil. So it can be any crop really. Some are better, some are not. Like some make it through winter, some are perennials, which last for many years. But based off of like the different soil health principles, there's four that are outlined by the USDA, which is to minimize soil disturbance and maximize soil cover, maximize the presence of living roots, and maximize the biodiversity. So you want to try to use those different soil principles that are outlined and to increase the better and to increase the microbiome within the soil to better the health.
Okay, so it was always my understanding that if you did a cover crop, so like I sometimes did ryegrass between the beds of my vegetables. So I did a cover crop, I would mow it down, it would just go into the soil. But if you do a cover crop and you take it off and your cows eat it, you're only I guess you're still getting the stubble, but what's the benefit of a cover crop then?
You're still going to get that presence of the living roots within the soil. So when the cover crop is eaten off, like cut off or grazed, whether you're haying it or grazing it, the roots are still going to be within the soil. And depending on the cover crop, you might have a fibrous root ball, or you might have a taproot, which goes deep down to break compaction. So regardless of the cover crop, yes, it might be better to leave the green matter and the green to put it back onto the soil for green manure. But to get the most out of it, the most economic benefit out of it, it's often best to graze it or cut it for hay to make most economic benefit.
For your farm here, because 'cause you're a mixed farm here in Alberta. You've got cattle and you've got the cropland. Okay, so now I'm gonna ask you a little bit because sometimes we chat politics, and I know that we're somewhat similar. So, what's your thoughts? So in the government, this is my understanding, and now you've been over there and you've seen how things work. So it's been my understanding from being here in Canada, watching, all of the European Union basically like come down on farmers. We saw the protests in the Netherlands and things like that. So it's my understanding that the government is kind of coming down. And you just said that you're not allowed to cut more land or clear more land for more farm fields. So um, is this a government? Are they farming this way because of the government? And what's your thoughts on that? And how should we be applying that to Canada or should we not be applying that to Canada? What's your opinion? And it's your opinion. You can say whatever you believe or whatever you think. So I support you.
For sure, that's a good question. Uh, Being from Alberta, we definitely have a different mindset towards government involvement and politics in general, regardless of whether it's agriculture or just everyday life. And in my opinion, the government involvement is a little bit overreach here because they get government subsidies in Finland for the cash crop, or they get government subsidies for the forest land as well. And the government is trying to protect the small farmers, which is nice. But with the government subsidies, it keeps the mindset of the farmers is a little bit different. Their economic isn't always at top of mind here, I would say. Like because they get such payment per hectare, depending on the crop they produce or plant, that they will not always have the economic mindset to make a living off the farm, if that makes sense. Like we have in Alberta, we need to make a living off of our farm, and they do here, but they get a lot of help from the government. And like my boss was saying, due to the war nearby, they are cutting the government spending of the farms for the different crops and putting it more towards defense. So the farmers are a little bit worried of how they're going to farm now because they don't have the government subsidies to help them get through. The benefit of the government subsidies would be that they are able to get payments for cover crops and not have a return on it. They can just cut it and lay it on the soil and not get a return, like using it for grazing or using it for hay for their cattle. So that is one big difference. Another difference I've found here is the government is trying to protect nature a lot more than what we do in Alberta. So they get a government subsidy to plant forest animal feed, which is any two crops planted in the same field, like mixed together, and that will classify as forest animal feed. And they get, I think that's the highest government subsidy that they can get is if they plant it into forest animal feed. So they're not getting a return or a benefit out of that because they can't harvest it.
Well, fascinating. Yeah, and I can't even fathom wanting, the deer to eat my crop here. Like, that's just unheard of here in Alberta or Saskatchewan or Manitoba. Like, we don't want the deer in our fields. We want them out. Okay, obviously they're controlling the chemical products that you can use and the herbicide, fungicide, insecticides. So how would you like to see, like, what are the principles? As you were speaking, I was thinking, what are the principles that you can take from there and apply to here, as far as government goes? And then how have you been able to talk to your farmers that you're working with there? Have you been able to share information back the other way to say, hey, what about getting some cows and putting it on your land?
So again, this goes into government involvement. Cattle is all the animals, meat animals, are very regulated here. Um, there are two main slaughter plants in Finland, and they don't have the same kind of system. They don't have the auction markets. So the slaughterhouses are trying to make the farms bigger, so they only have to deal with a fewer farms but more animals, if that makes sense. And that way they are you have to you have to agree and do everything that the slaughterhouse says to be able to sell your animals. So if you don't get along with the slaughterhouse, they can cut your contract and you might have 300 head nowhere to go. So it's not the same as at home where you might just have 10 cows. You have nowhere to sell those 10 cows because the slaughterhouse might not want to buy those 10 cows when they're fat. So it's not as easy as just having, oh, I'll just have 10, 30 cows or something. You have to be almost a minimum of 200 cattle here. And it's all raised in barns too. There's no grazing. Really, like there's a little bit of grazing, but not very much. They're all in barns, even the beef cattle.
Really fascinating. Why are they putting their cows in barns?
A lot of it is to do with their climate. It is quite wet here, so it can even wreck the soil when the cattle are walking in wet pastures. It can wreck the soil, kill the plants. But also, there's so many forests here as well that they will be they have to be grazing the forest almost like the moose. So it makes it hard to be grazing that amount of animals in the same sense as we do at home. But to answer your question about government involvement, bringing it back to Canada, Um, One thing that I would like to see, and I have seen in Canada and in Alberta, is different subsidies to try to help the farmers better their soil with cover crops and different regenerative farming practices. And I have seen the funding, so um, I can't say they haven't been doing it. It's just I'd like to see how the farm in Finland or the government in Finland is doing it for the farmers, and I'd like to see that more even in Alberta.
Because that would help the smaller farmer. So that would help your, because I know your farm in central Alberta here. It's not a big farm. You're not a big massive corporation. So if there was a bit more help from the government, it would help your small farm. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
For sure. Yes, it would help you cover seed costs and cover the extra application because sometimes uh, you have to balance between spraying and working the field. A lot of them do the same benefits, but you want to minimize your soil disturbance. But if you want to minimize um, your spraying, your chemical application, one of them has to give. So you have to, but making an extra pass over the field, it costs extra fuel and time and machinery expenses. So you have to try to balance between the two, and a little bit of extra funding would definitely help to cover the cost for that.
So I got another hard question for you then. So if we get more government involvement, how does that work for farmers and food and things like that? Because I feel like he who controls the food controls the people. So what's your thought process on that in having inviting the government in and inviting more bureaucracy in?
I don't agree with it. I would definitely like less government involvement for sure, because of if they are funding you, yes, it's nice to have the money, but if you're getting money from them, they control you and they control every little thing that they do on your farm. And to even to the point, this another point I'd like to get into is the farming or the farmers in Finland plow a lot. They still use four bottom plows just like they did 100 years ago. And the government here is trying to reduce the amount of plowing. So they have satellite imagery. And if you plow your land, you get less government subsidies. If you don't plow your land, you get more. And it used to be that you had to fill out the paperwork for that. But now they can see on the satellite imagery that they can see if you plow your land or not, and they can control whether you get the subsidies or you don't. So I don't agree. I do not agree with the government involvement here. It is definitely an overreach from what I'm used to from Alberta.
Yeah, wow. I don't like that either. I mean, the government's going to just spy on you no matter what you're doing. So the farmers own their land?
They do, yes, and the majority is owned. We do rent some land here, but I would say even more of it is owned than at home.
Okay. I had another question when you were talking about beef there, that you have to have 200 cows to even be able to sell to the slaughter plant. But what about farm to table sales there? How does that work? Like you worked for me for a while, like you know what I did. Is there much of that there? Is there much of, taking from your small farm, bringing it into town and selling it to your friends and neighbors? Is there much of that there?
I have not experienced that as much. I haven't been to town as much either, and the language barrier has been tough to understand and read signs or whatever and understand what's going on. Um, I have not seen the same farm to table products for the civilians here. I haven't seen what we do in Canada or Alberta and the same kind of mindset of being more farm direct. I haven't seen that
Okay, so it's just more government, right? So you've got your and grocery stores. Do you have grocery stores over there?
for sure. Yes, we do.
And what's in them?
There's a lot of not very many whole cuts of meat, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot of processed food. So when the slaughter plants here, they take the meat and they'll take it right to final products. So they'll take it to a bunch of salami, sausages, cut up, cooked chicken, a lot of pre-made meals, like TV dinners, heat up and go kind of meals. The slaughterhouses produce those products as well. So they have the value chain right from some of the slaughterhouses even own the farms. So they have the value chain right from the farms right to the final products in the grocery store.
Gross, honestly. Like, he who controls the food controls the people, and I feel like this is just me gonna be mouthy now. I feel like that's where Canada is headed and North America is headed. I think that's what they want, is they want us to eat TV dinners in front of the TV and not get outside in nature and not, put our feet in the soil, and that just doesn't seem healthy to me. That seems very are they sick a lot over there?
I w- I don't know how to speak on that part because I don't I've seen a small perspective of the civilization here because I have just been witness from what I've seen on our farm and the family around. Um, I can say that I've seen the difference and the benefits of real whole food, um, and I've seen the importance of real food while living in Finland. When you have living off of processed food has been a big change, and it you have to balance the difference between convenience and healthy food. You have to look at the two and see what you're willing to give up or what way you're wanting to lean a little bit more. So the convenience foods are something I've never really experienced to the same level as home, as what I've experienced here in Finland.
Well, because I can remember you, and I don't remember what you were making, but you were in the store one day and you were telling us about what you were cooking something or making something or baking something. You were doing something. And I was like, "What?" Like, you're a teenager because you were in high school, I think, when you worked for me, right?
Yeah, in first year
Yeah.
college, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So you were doing something. You were making something or baking something or cooking something from scratch. And I was like, wow, like how many 18-year-old kids, are cooking from scratch. And so you've had to shift your diet while you're over there. Is that what I'm hearing?
for sure, yeah. And the place I'm living at, all of my meals are provided by the host family, which is fantastic. So I get to see how they eat and experience the foods that they eat, which breaks me away from eating like I would back home. And I'm very appreciative of that, even though it's a different kind of culture and different food, it makes you appreciate what you have at home and it makes you have firm beliefs and firm values in your standards back home.
Yes. So what do you eat at home?
We eat a lot of what we raise on our farm. So we raise our own pork, we raise our own chicken, we raise our own beef. I know, and most of our own vegetables. I know that is a little bit extreme compared to other farms, but uh, I have definitely tried to implement that more on our farm. It's never more satisfying to look at your plate and look at everything and see everything you've produced and eat everything that you've grown and you've seen this chick raised from a day old all the way to butchering it and you butchered it yourself and you put it in the freezer yourself. There's nothing more satisfying. And it maybe you're not even a good cook, but that meal still tastes good.
Absolutely. I mean, the tomatoes I grew, well, they were pretty good tomatoes, but even though I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna tell you a little secret right now. The tomatoes that I'm growing here at this new place that I have are not as good as what I had on my former farm, but I'm like, I grew up myself, so they're good. Like, it's kind of funny. And I've had moments like that too. So you know where I live here in Alberta. And I've got just a tiny little footprint that I'm on, and I've got chicken and I had a few pork this year, and so I got them butchered, and yeah, so I've been eating on my plate lately things that I grew myself. And you're right. It is so satisfying to know that you've grown it or you've raised it or whatever. And that's what you're putting on your plate. And for me, there's a whole level of independence there as well, because I know that if, shit goes sideways, that I can feed my family. And that's really important to me. Yeah. Cool.
For sure. Like
Uh
when you when we went through COVID and you went into the grocery store and there's nothing. There's no meat, there's no bread, there's nothing. and you go home and you're like, I don't need the grocery store. I can do all this myself. It's nothing more rewarding to have that independence of knowing you can do it yourself. Or maybe you can't do it yourself, but you know where to get it. You know the farmer that you can get it from and that they can supply you, whether you live in town or whether you live on an acreage. We've had many people come to us on our farm asking, if things go sideways, can you help us with the meat? Can you help us with the eggs? Can you help us with different kinds of food? And we've always been able to uh, help people, and we'll always continue to help people.
Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement. Which that's something where I've been talking a lot about this, and I've thought about a lot about this in selling the farm. One of the hardest parts of me selling the farm was because during COVID, I had people coming to me and saying, "You've got food, right?" Especially the unvaxxed. Like, I'm unvaxxed. I think you're unvaxxed. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure you're unvaxxed. Like, people would come to us and say, "You've got food, right?" And they were scared when you saw the grocery store shelves empty off. People were afraid where they were going to get their next meal from. And I always felt that was the hardest part for me selling the farm was, knowing that I might not be able to help quite as many people as I was before when I had the farm. And so, yeah, that's always been important. And I love to hear that even you as a young person, want to look out for your community, want to look out for your neighbors and your fellow people, and build community around that. That's where it's at. That's what's important, and that's where we need to get back to. I feel like, so with regenerative farming, this question just popped up. With regenerative farming, you're kind of going backwards in some practices in some ways. So tell me about that. Like, tell me what will that do for our food system? And I fully believe we should go backwards. I think the global health or the global hunger system or food system, we wouldn't have hungry people if everyone had a garden and a few chickens in their backyard, right? So explain that to me. So you're going there to learn regenerative practices, which are really cool, but under government bureaucracy. So how do we apply that without the bureaucracy?
So, like I said with the animals, it definitely makes it a lot easier to apply the regenerative farming and implement the animals into the system. Uh, One thing I'd like to get back to, or a little bit more at home, we also grow quite a bit of hay. So, using the different legumes and grasses uh, as a hay crop, but using that within our rotation. So, yes, it's keeping the soil covered, but we're also getting a benefit out of that, and we're getting revenue off of the field. So, to implement more regenerative practices with less government involvement, I'd like to see planting more hay. But like I've heard back home this year, it has not been a great year for haying. And like the last previous years, we've had very easy years to get our hay off if we have no smoke. So it's a balance between you want to get the hay off and get it off in good quality. But where we live, it can be miserable sometimes to get a good crop of hay and get it dry. So that's where you have to balance between uh, doing too much hay, but using that to benefit the soil in the long run, giving the soil a break
Okay.
from cash crop.
Okay, so planting more hay crops and things like that. But a lot of guys around here, they do green feed. So they'll bale up a crop. Like, what about that? Like, what's the difference between green feed and hay?
So green feed often has a cereal crop in it, like an annual wheat, barley, oats, um, something that the cattle will prefer. And it will is you have to plant a green feed crop for the first year of hay because it takes the hay crop, like legumes like the alfalfa, a little bit longer to establish. So you want to be able to plant the green feed the first year, so you still get a revenue from that field, and then for the subsequent years, you'll get hay crop.
Okay, so you've been away, you're learning regenerative farming, you're gonna bring all those practices back to your farm here in Alberta. Where do you see your future? You're young. How old are you?
21.
21. Super young. You got your whole life ahead of you. What do you want to do with it? What do you want to be when you grow up?
I still ask myself this question all the time. I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to do something within agriculture and I want to be able to help people. Uh, I don't know where that's going to lead me. Of course, I'd like to farm, but I'd also like to help the people and the community around me. And I love teaching people and helping people to do it for themselves as well. You don't need a big farm to do it. And the skill set, I like the old fashioned skill set is so valuable. I believe that it's very powerful to have that knowledge in your head. It doesn't mean you need to use it all the time, but in case things go sideways, that you're able to still sustain yourself and your family.
Wow, yeah, amazing. And you're 100% correct. You don't need a big plot of land to make a living, and especially if you go a little bit backwards in time, if you do things from scratch, if you I mean, you worked with me. You saw how much food I did for people, and I was only on 43 acres, and that was a lot of food and the direct marketing and things like that with the store that we had um yeah, so I really like that. And so as a young person, there's ways that you can get back into farming on a small scale with a small piece of land. You just have to be a little creative and do it, think outside the box and do it a little differently.
For sure. And like an example of this is we when I was younger, almost 10 years ago, I think, uh, my brothers and I started with 15 chickens, and we slowly built up, and we built up to the point that we were selling in farmers markets uh, to try to just reach out to people and get our product out to people and help all these different people. But it also is a sense of farming as well. You don't have to have a lot. You can slowly start with 5, 10 chickens, and once you have 5 or 10, you just never stop. But it will. You don't need a lot of land. You can still produce products. It might not be the same that you might have the ideal in your head, but you can still farm in a sense as well.
For sure, absolutely. And it is farming. Like if you look up the definition of farming, I'm not sure what the definition is, but if you look up the definition of farming, it's producing food for people. Is That's my definition of farming. You're producing food. And yeah, whether that's 15 chickens or, 20,000 acres worth of cropland, it still is food for people. It's just two different scales and a whole lot of different debt load. And so, yeah, that's the part that I'm really thankful for right now is I've got a very low debt load. When I had my farm, I was almost $1 million in debt, and now my debt load is zero. And so how will you apply that? Like what's your plan going forward? Because I know you're going to farm in some capacity back here in Alberta. What's your business plan look like for as far as farming goes?
So in the future, as it stands right now, I'll be farming with my brothers and my parents, to be able to, we'd like to increase the size of our farm and slowly build, to the size that we can sustain ourselves. Because currently, we all, one younger brother is working on the farm right now, but the rest of us work off the farm. So to a sense we can sustain ourselves and sustain families off of it. Uh, it'd be Our goal would be to build to the size that we can farm a good amount of acres and have a nice amount of cattle as well.
For sure. And then will you direct market? Is that in your vision for your family farm?
We're looking into it and seeing the different revenue streams and different options that we can get into. We're definitely in a different stage right now. We're transitioning stages of the world is at our fingertips right now to see where we're going to go. There's different markets like niche markets of the EU market. both for our oilseed and our like canola and our beef cattle as well. So we're looking into expanding into different markets, not just the conventional uh, market that we have here of the auction market route.
Wow, cool. Tic-tac-tician planning, yeah. I know you. I've known you for several years now. Wherever you set your heart, you're gonna fly. You're gonna do really well. So just one last question here. So if someone is listening today and they think, man, I'm young and I want an adventure and I want to go learn more about farming, tell us about the program that you're on. So you found your program, and can you tell us a little bit more about that, and what would you suggest to a young person wanting to get some experience that way?
I would say just jump into it. Don't think about it too much. Don't be worried about moving away for very long. Yes, your family is back home, and they'll be back home when you get home. Uh, have this young opportunity. Like when you're young, you can go do things. Take advantage of it. Um, and that is something I've been told, and I have tried to do the best that I can to take advantage of it while you can, because you never know when your last chance is to travel. You never know, oh, I wish I could have done that. Or when you come back, you're set down and you have to start a life, and you might not be able to travel again until you're retired. So I would suggest to people, write down your dreams, write down places you want to go. And if you write them down, there's a better chance you're going to reach them. If you write them down, you're going to go to them. So you're going to make it work, and you're going to achieve those goals and dreams. So when you write it down, you're going to then figure out a plan to reach those goals. And one of my ways of reaching it was to do this a way to work, working abroad on other farms. And if you're willing to learn different things, jump into it. You don't have to have experience, just be willing to learn.
For sure. Wow. So you wrote down the places that you'd like to travel to and go to, but did you write your farm down on that piece of paper as well?
The farm in Finland or the farm at home?
No, your farm. Yeah. You said write your goals, hopes, and dreams on a piece of paper. Did you write your farm on that piece of paper?
I did, yes. I
You
You
did.
have different goals that we would like to achieve, and see where you'd like to go in the future with your life. And when you write it down, like I said, you're more better chance of achieving them.
Love it. I love it. You know what? You, for being just 20 years old, you are inspiring, actually. That's why I really wanted you on the show. You've got farming experience, you've got work ethic, you've got drive, you're just a heart-filled young man, and you're going to go places in life. Um, yeah, for sure. So thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for being on the show today. Thanks for taking your time. And what time is it there? Because I'm in Canada, you're still in Finland. What time is it there?
It's 6 in the morning.
Oh, you got up early to do this.
Yeah.
Like a farm guy, like a farm guy. I love it. So, thanks so much for being here today. Thanks for doing this. And yeah, I look forward to hearing more about your adventures and seeing where life takes you in the future, young man.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Of course, of course, of course. Thank you.